YouTube. Okay, let me get to the
No, yeah, they all do.
I'm looking for the link.
No, yeah.
I'll see if I can go to the page.
Okay, I found it. Post it on the divest page.
I'm going to sit outside on the table, I guess. Oh.
Yo, Mom, here's one from the radio station here. I was just telling you.
It should start right now. I just posted it on the. I posted it on the divest page.
It's recording?
Yep.
We're gonna get started right now. Everybody can get ready. Sorry for the delay. First of all, thank you all for attending. We really appreciate you all coming out. It's a really short notice event, actually, and I just want to give some background. First of all, my name is Amos. I'm a member of the Students for Justice in Palestine. Amos is currently the president. And basically, the context of this event is that at ASU over the last few weeks, we've been basically fully invested in this campaign to get ASU to divest from Caterpillar. You're going to learn a lot about that today. Everybody here mostly knows about it, but this event is especially for student leaders and people at ASU that don't know what's going on and have some kind of influence or ability to make a change within ASU on this issue. So luckily we have a live stream that's going on now, so anybody who can't make it tonight will be able to hear all the information that we hear from our two distinguished guests. We have Father Bob Holmes and Amos, sorry, last name, Gvirtz. So we have two speakers that have a lot of experience with these issues, that have lived and seen all the things they're going to talk about tonight. So definitely very experienced and a lot to learn from them tonight. And hopefully we can use this information to really make a change on our campus that will actually positively affect the events that are going on currently in Israel, Palestine. To the presentation. Anybody who's watching, enjoy it. So, Father Bob Holmes, if you want to start.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to speak first, but I'm just going to throw up some pictures and tell you some stories about what bulldozers are doing in Palestine. So you'll have some idea of just how huge this Caterpillar thing is. Although not all the bulldozers are Caterpillars. There's, there's one of the ones Volvo, but we have to go to Sweden to get them, I guess. So the this is it. This is the armored bulldozer made by Caterpillar, and the people in Palestine are more afraid of this than a tank. Because when this comes, it's going to knock their home down. It's really, really a scary thing. So what I'm going to do then is just throw up pictures and tell you stories, real stories that are happening that involve bulldozers. Home demolitions are the biggest one, and there you can see the soldiers come and they surround the house, take the people out, and the bulldozers come in and knock it down. I'm going to take you first of all to the Bekaa Valley. This is Hebron here in the south half of the West Bank. It's in the center, and just outside of Sudbury, and this is they call it the Bekaa Valley. And this is Jabber. And I took a group, a delegation of CPT people to meet him and his brother Atta. And he's pointing at his father's home. This is where he grew up. And what's happening here is this settlement on the top of the hill, Abraham Avinu, no, this is Kiryat Arba or Hartzina, and it has spread down, expanded down, right down to here. All this land is Jabber land, and it's been confiscated, and all the land's been bulldozed so that you can expand the settlements. This is happening absolutely every day. Settlements are expanding, bulldozers are clearing more land that belongs to Palestinian people, and it's being taken. So that's just an everyday use of the bulldozers to confiscate land that belongs to Palestinians. Now, this is his brother, Ata, and okay. Oh, he's a good friend of both of us, actually. And he's standing here. This road behind him goes up to that settlement. And it was bulldozed by the Israeli army right through their family vineyards. They didn't ask permission, they didn't do it, they just bulldozed it right through. And then after they got the road bulldozed through and paved and going up to the settlement, they came to Ada and said, Ada, your house is too close to the road. We have a military law that says no Palestinian home may be within 200 meters of a road the settlers drive on. So we're issuing you a demolition order. He'd been living in this house for years, and they told him it's got to go. And there it is. They came up and they demolished it with bulldozers. I'm going to have to keep drinking water every once in a while. My voice is getting a little
Should we
hoarse.
get him in front of the camera? I can tell him what's okay.
Am I in the right place for you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Now, Ada didn't put up with that, so he built another one right here. He just said, okay, I'm putting up another one. Now, in order to build in Area C, where this is outside of Hebron, you have to get a permit from the military, because they are the civil administration. And of course, there's no way Otto's going to get a permit to build a house. So they came and they knocked that house down. Now, here's what happens when they come to knock your house down. The soldiers come, they lead the bulldozer in, and then away it goes. This is here. The family's taken out, dragged out. Otto was dragged out and taken to jail when they tore down his first house. But I want you to meet Jeff Helper. Some of you may know him, and he's been here to Phoenix, I think, eh? Jeff is Israeli, Jewish, American-born, and he's heart-sick at what his government and his army are doing. So he formed the Israeli Coalition Against Home Demolition, ICAD. And this is another one of the ICAD members. I can't remember her name. But they came to see Ada. And they said, Ada, you have to rebuild your house. You've got to keep resisting. If you tear it down, you got to build it. He says, I can't build it. I don't have any money. And they'll just knock it down again. He says, Jeff said, we will pay for it. Because it's our government that knocked it down. And it's our army that knocked it down. So we will gather the funds and we will pay for it. And amazing. And I have to tell you, I think this is what Shalom looks like. I think this is what Salam looks like. This is what peace looks like. Because right here, you've got Israelis, Palestinians, and internationals all working together to clear away the rubble to build that new home. Here you've got Jews, Muslims, and Christians all working together. And they're all in resistance to this oppression of the home demolition. And here's the home. They did build it more than 200 meters away from the road, but they couldn't get a permit, of course. The Israeli army won't give permits in Area C to build anything because they want the Palestinians to leave Area C. But they built it. And this is Ata and his wife and his two youngest kids. This is 2003. I was in it in December. It's still there. They haven't knocked it down. And I thought it was because of Jeff Helton, but you're saying it was some other reason.
Yeah.
Tell us why.
There is an Israeli reporter, Gideon Levy, who writes in the Haaretz newspaper, and he writes a lot of stories of what the occupation is doing. So he wrote about Ada Jaber. And there was an Israeli woman that was touched very deeply from the story of Ada Jaber, and she decided to help him. The great lucky is that her husband in Israel is one of the great military heroes. Even he's not serving in the army anymore, but he really, if he says something, the military will listen more than if somebody else say. And I believe that because of this couple, this house is still standing.
Thank you. So it's there. Those kids are now in high school, okay? And his two older ones are heading off to the University of Hebron. And here's Jeff. I took a group there a couple summers ago, and we went to his office, and he explained what ICAT is doing and what the Home Demolition is doing. And this is one of his guides. And that guide took us out and showed us home demolitions right in East Jerusalem. And this was an apartment building. It was 3 stories high. Again, it was built without a permit because you can't get a permit if you're Palestinian and you want to build even in East Jerusalem. So they built it. So he's taking us around showing us that. But you know, he also took us to see the wall in East Jerusalem. And this separation wall is not separating, you know, Israelis from Palestinians. This is separating Palestinians from Palestinians. This separates the Palestinians in the West Bank from the Palestinians in East Jerusalem. And if you don't have East Jerusalem ID, now you can't get in to East Jerusalem without a permit. And permits are hard to get. But again, this is bulldozers. The bulldozers bulldoze all the route for this wall. And, you know, I was out many times with Palestinian groups standing in front of those bulldozers, trying to stop them from bulldozing the land to put in the wall. And some days we'd be successful for a day. And then the next day they'd come back and keep bulldozing. But that's the wall is also part of this bulldozer thing. But Control Alt Delete is going to go someday. Someday this wall will fall. I'm convinced of it. It's huge. Look at the size of it. I'm going to take you back to a very sad day. It's the 16th of November 2002. The night before, we heard a tremendous amount of shooting in Hebron. And in 2002, you didn't go out at night because anybody who got shot by the Israeli people on the rooftops, because we were under curfew. If you were outside, then you shouldn't have been, so you get shot. But we heard all this shooting. So next morning, we went and we discovered 3 bodies, Palestinians, and we heard rumors that there had been a massacre, that 15 worshippers coming back from the Jewish synagogue had been killed and 15 more had been wounded. But when we got there, we discovered that the 15 people killed were all Israeli soldiers or security guards, all armed, and all of the wounded were army. And these 3 gunmen had ambushed the army, and they got killed. But you know, when we talked to all the people in the neighborhood where it took place, they said, well, there was a lot of people shooting at each other, and there's a lot of what we would call friendly fire. A lot of the Israeli soldiers were killed by Israeli soldiers shooting from different places. But what really we learned that day was this machine was there. And what happened was they brought in the bulldozer, and they, because there were 3 gunmen, they bulldozed 3 homes in a neighborhood. These gunmen weren't from the neighborhood. They weren't even from Hebron. But that neighborhood was punished by 3 homes being demolished. And this is one of our CPTers. She's a Catholic nun, and she was comforting the family as they dug out what they could find in the rubble. So this is, again, the bulldozer being used as a revenge for what was going on here. And it was a terrible tragedy. But, wow. 2003, I don't know if you know Rachel Corrick, she was an ISM activist, and they were in Gaza, and they were trying to stop these bulldozers from knocking down the homes of the people in Gaza. And one of the bulldozers ran her down, and she was killed. I won't leave that picture up very long. But that was wild. And all of us have been standing in front of bulldozers. Israelis, Palestinians, internationals. It's something we were doing almost every day. We were going out and getting in front of bulldozers, trying to stop them from destroying houses, from destroying orchards, from destroying, from putting up the wall, all these things. So that was an incredible tragedy. And we all felt it really strongly because it could have been any one of us. The village here, Palestinian village in the South Hebron Hills, spent a lot of time fixing up their road, their only connection to the highway. But they didn't have a permit. The state of Israel, the Israeli military civilian administration would not give them a permit, but they needed to fix it. So they fixed their road without a permit, and they came in with the bulldozers and they just tore it apart. Just, days of work destroyed in an hour. So road demolitions. Village closures. Bulldozers were used often to put every road going into a village closed off. And people were isolated. You could walk across them, although sometimes the soldiers were here and wouldn't let you even walk across. And sometimes they weren't there. So we did a lot of actions trying to remove these. And sometimes the soldiers were there, and you didn't dare go anywhere near it. But sometimes we'd get a whole village would march down to the barrier that had been put up by the bulldozers. And then we'd be told by the village chief, the mayor of the village, he'd say, this is a non-violent action. Nobody's going to throw rocks. Nobody's going to do anything. We're going to go down. We're going to remove it. And if the soldiers come and the police come, we're just going to refuse to leave. So it was fantastic. This is one of my favorite pictures. Rolling away the stone of oppression. And all Palestinians are doing it. And the internationals are there observing and helping. Rabbis for Human Rights. This is Arik Asherman, and this is a woman rabbi, and these are CPTers, Christian peacemakers, all working with Palestinians to remove this barrier. Fantastic. And again, this is a picture of Shalom. Palestinian woman, Muslim, Jewish man, Christian nun, and they're all working together to roll away the stone of oppression, this barrier that's keeping people in their village. And of course, the army does come, and the police come, and they say, you've got to leave. If you don't leave, we're going to arrest you. And we didn't leave, of course, and they come in and they start pushing and shoving everybody and grabbing people and arresting them. This is Nena Golan. She's Israeli. She's one of the founders of ISM, the International Solidarity Movement. I took this picture, and this policewoman back here is twisting her arm, and she broke it. She had her arm broken by the cops arresting her. And this was a CPTer from Vancouver, on Canada, a good friend of mine. She was arrested. I was told not to get arrested. We never allow our whole team to get arrested at the same time. So, so I'm documenting it. And here's Arik. They went to get Arik Asher, and it was really funny. He told me before we started, he says, now look, today, when they tell us to leave or we're going to get arrested, he says, I'm going to leave because my wife told me, don't get arrested today. You'll be stuck there for hours and all that stuff. So he says, so don't be surprised that I get up and leave. It's okay. I'm not deserting the cause. Well, he was 100 meters away, and they ran after him and grabbed him, and 4 of them brought him back. And he's coming back by me, and he said, call my wife. And then, of course, they disperse everybody with tear gas, and away you go. That was almost a weekly occurrence back in 2001, 2002. I want to take you now to the South Hebron Hills. Here's Hebron, and this area here has seen a lot of real huge problems with bulldozers, among other things. I want to talk to you about the 3 Susias. The first one you can't see, because Susia is a Palestinian village. I think there were 70 families there. Something like that. But there's something that goes on in the West Bank, and it's called political archaeology. And they went looking for remnants of old Jewish places, and they found, the ruins of a Jewish synagogue in this village of Susia. So it became a national shrine, and everybody was evicted. That was Susia number 1. They were all kicked out. Some of the houses were taken over by the Israelis. 1983. 86. Okay. This is before I got there. You were there.
No.
So here's the second Susia, right here. People were taken a long way away, but they all came back. And about a kilometer away from their original village, they set up a tent city, and there's some caves there. And they're living here. The third Susia is over here. This is an Israeli settlement. And it's got running water, it's got paved roads, it's got electricity, it's got armed policemen, soldiers, and in between Susia settlement and the original Susia, which is now a shrine, an archaeological site, is this one. Well, they've been threatened with demolition so often that every tent has a demolition order. Even the caves have demolition orders. And of course, you see, not for demolition, Susia forever. And it's the Rabbis for Human Rights and I think ACRI, which is a human rights organization, an Israeli human rights organization, have managed to go to court and stave off these demolition orders. Palestinians have learned that if you get issued a demolition order, the best thing to do right away is contest it in court. Find an Israeli lawyer to take it to court. And then the courts are so slow that you get at least another year before it happens. And then, of course, when the court date comes up, you find reasons for postponing it, and you postpone it. You can postpone it for 4 years or so. So it's a way of, keeping your places going. And I think this one's still in court, but I can't remember.
I think they lost it.
They lost it?
Yeah.
Okay, so that means at any moment now they'll be just, the army will come in and bulldoze all their tents, and they'll be out again.
Do they give them any warning? Do they give them any warning?
No. They come in about 6 in the morning, give you 1 hour to take your stuff and get out, and then they start taking things down.
Who comes in the morning?
The army and the police. They come in.
The settlers. The settlers.
Not the settlers. No, it's the army that has the bulldozers, and the police come to arrest people. And I took this picture. These are the soldiers talking with the settlers. We were out pruning some olive trees, and we were just accompanying them to keep them safe because the olive trees were close to the settlement. And they're constantly being harassed by these settlers. And this is their theme. I resist, therefore I exist. Their resistance is their resistance. They don't have to, march and fight and just be there, stay there. I want to tell you about the latest thing that we've been working with. This is firing zone 918. This is up Hebron Hills. Here it is. This is the area. There are 8 Palestinian villages in here, and they're very small. And the Israeli army has ordered them all evacuated because they're turning it into a firing zone to practice firing with their tanks and things. And there are 4 settlements along the edges, and there's 4 outpost settlements along the edges. So clearly, it's to clear the area so the settlements can expand and take that land. That's what it's really about. And if you go walking in, you can't. It's hard to drive in because the roads are terrible. And they can't get a permit to fix the roads. But look what you run into: danger, firing area, entrance forbidden. So for us to go in, for anybody who doesn't live in those villages to go in, you are breaking military law. So we go in all the time, and because they've asked us to come in and stay in those villages, and so we try to keep internationals in there all the time. So CPT does 2 nights a week, and ISM does 2 nights a week, and the ecumenical accompaniers do a couple of nights a week. So we can keep it. And Tayush comes down on Saturdays. It's
This Italian operation.
Operation Dove is the biggest one because they're right down there. Yes, so there's quite a few international groups that are going in. So let me show you what this is about. By the way, this also is in the courts right now because, again, the Rabbis for Human Rights got lawyers and went to court, and they're fighting the evacuation orders. Is it Akri? Well, I know Rabbis for Human Rights are doing at least one of the villages, but Akri is there. Yeah. So again, getting it into the courts can stop the evacuation order for a time being until the courts finally make a decision. But let me take you in there. What if somebody were to barge into your home and declare it a military training zone and evict you? Well, that's what's happened. Here's one of those outposts. Even in Israeli law, these outpost settlements are illegal. They were built without permits. But they've got paved roads. They've got running water, piped water. They've got soldiers protecting them. The 8 villages in the firing zone don't have any of those things, and they can't get a permit for them, so they can't have them. They can't have running water. They can't have electricity. They can't fix the roads, and they certainly don't have anybody protecting them. Here's what they look like. They're very primitive. They live in these caves. These are all caves. These are all caves. So the whole village lives in the caves. They got a few tents and these pens that they keep their sheep in. And they've got an evacuation order. If they want to build above ground, they have to get a permit. And of course, they can't get a permit. And if they build, they get an immediate demolition order. Well, this village had solar panels and a wind turbine donated to them by the Germans, a German NGO. And they immediately got demolition orders. But they appealed to Germany, and Germany apparently intervened and said, don't you touch those. And so they're still there and they're working. So that's good. All 8 villages suffer settler violence. And settlers come down to the villages, they harass them, and the army is usually with them. The army's kind of protecting them. It's just a constant harassment. I was there when these guys attacked. Now, I have to tell you though, that the police didn't stop them, which is good.
But didn't arrest them?
No, of course not. No, but stop them at least. But this is a perfect example of the soldiers shaking hands with the settlers who've got their faces covered so that you don't know who it is that's doing the settler violence. Because they have no running water, they have to collect rainwater. So they build cisterns. They, in the valleys, the water runs down the hills. But if you build a cistern without a permit, in comes the bulldozer. And there it is, destroying the system. So right above the hill, there's an outpost, and they have running water piped in. Here, just because they want to try to collect their water, they build a cistern, and it gets demolished. If people decide they're going to build a home above ground, in it comes. They come in with the bulldozers, and they demolish it. And they're homeless. They're trying to force them, displace them out of the area. Here's a wonderful example of resistance. This village built a school without a permit. I visited the school when it was still being built, and they were operating 2 classrooms. They added 2 more. And the principal said, "Now, we want you guys to come in here and sleep in the school at night because we know they're going to come soon with the bulldozers because we built this without a permit. But we want you here. We want you to document it. We want you to be part of that." To my knowledge, it's still here. I took this picture in December, and so this is March, and they haven't bulldozed it yet, which is great. It's really great. I'm going to take you outside of the West Bank. West Bank is here. This is the Negev, and this is part of Israel. And in the Negev are the Bedouin people, who are Palestinians, but they're also citizens of the state of Israel. And I'm sure that Amos will speak about this because this is close to his heart. This is where he does a lot of his work. But I'll just take you there and show you some pictures before I turn it over to him. El Araqib, I went there with Amos. He took me in a CPT delegation, a Christian peacemaker delegation, to El Araqib. And there were a lot of people coming that day. There was a big demonstration there. So we had this welcome sign out for us. Here it is. It's tarps and 2x4s. And here's a bigger picture of it. And they're still building up new buildings. And we discovered that they're putting in a forest here. And the bulldozers are coming in and wiping out their village. And that day that I got there, they told me that El Araqib had been demolished 26 times that year. 26 times in 1 year. That's every 2 weeks. It was 2010 when they came the first time? 27th of July, 2010. So I came in 2011 in July. They had been in. So it's incredible, the resistance of the people of El Araqib. When the bulldozers leave, they come back. And they throw up some tents and tarps and reclaim the land. They won't go away. 26 times in 1 year. It was fantastic. And there's a cemetery there. And the Israelis won't bulldoze the cemetery. They have respect for cemeteries. I think because their own cemeteries have been desecrated, and so they won't be accused of desecrating cemetery. And when the bulldozers come, the people go into the cemetery, the Palestinians, the Bedouin, and so far they've been safe there. The dead are protecting the living. Interesting. This is the sheikh and his son, and they always, I've been back there now 4 or 5 times, and they always welcome us. They want us to tell the story, so that's why I'm doing this. He asked me to come and tell you the story. And here's Amos, and he's translating for us, thank you. And he's going to talk to you a little bit more about it in a moment. But they lost 4,000 olive trees. They're going to plant a forest, but to do it, they knock out 4,000 olive trees. Huh? Because that's the livelihood of the Bedouins. So you destroy their livelihood, and they won't come back. They can't, but they do. I love this picture. All trees are part of the family. So on the day that we were there, children planted new olive trees. And Amos and my delegation, we helped plant, I think, 200 olive trees, was it? Whatever number. We put in it was an act of resistance, putting the olive trees back. They were gone in 2 weeks, bulldozed, but we did it, and we're making a symbolic point. And El Araqib has been taken off the map, because it's not on the Israeli maps. You can't find it on the map. So we put it on the map. We put up a street sign on the highway saying, here it is. It's still here. Even though you tried to get rid of it, it's still here. Refusing to leave is the primary resistance of the Bedouin people. They will not be pushed off their land by these bulldozers. 3 weeks ago, 66 times. Can you imagine going back 66 times after your house has been destroyed? Absolutely amazing. This was March 12th. Like this, 3 weeks ago. Oh my God. And this is the compound where they keep the bulldozers. These are Volvos, eh? And you got to meet Nuri. He's a very, very good friend of Amos, and Amos took us to his home. He lives in that area in the village, and he's been arrested 60 times. He told us 60 times I've been arrested for going home to my own home. Incredible. So I'm going to leave it there and turn it over to you, Amos. We can turn the lights up a bit now, because he won't be using them.
Well, good evening, and thank you for accepting us. For me as Israeli to come to speak to people like you, some of you, I believe, are Palestinians, Arabs. Some of you are activists, and what can I say that will be new to you, that will be meaningful for you? And your organization, you call it Students for Justice in Palestine. And there is one beautiful Jewish organization here in the United States called Jewish Voice for Peace, which is similar to the radical peace movement in Israel, which I believe that I'm part of it. Taking the names of these two organizations make the whole difference. You speak about justice, we speak about peace. You speak about justice because you want what you lost. We speak about peace because we want to secure what we have. Now, this is much more than the relations between us and you. It is the relations between the northern rich world and the southern poor world. In the north, we speak about peace. In the south, they speak about justice. And I learned it about the relations north-south from our conflict. I want to speak about something that you must know, maybe you know even better than me. And when we spoke to high school students, and I wanted to introduce the conflict, to speak about the conflict, I thought that we have to explain what the conflict is about. For them it was new, for you not, but I still will speak about it. To characterize our conflict, as the way that I do, we can say that we have historical process when one society invades the life territory of another society, and in historical process push them away from the territory. And those that they cannot push away, they squeeze into a minimal territory as possible. And when we speak about the Nakba, I think that there are two different ways to understand the Nakba. Nakba was historical event, the catastrophe of 1948. This is one way to see it. And there is another way that I suggest to see it, and believe that I'm sure I'm not alone. Nakba is not historical event. Nakba is historical process. And listening to Bob gave us only few stories of this historical process. We have ongoing process of Nakba. It's happening all the time. And when we come into the discussion whether one-state solution or two-state solution, and in the radical peace movement in Israel, we do have this discussion within the radical peace movement. I am standing on the side of two-state solution. And why? First of all, and above all, because of one thing. If we see our conflict, again, that one society invade into the life territory of the other society, and in historical process push them away from the territory, the only way to put end to this process is to put border to the Zionist movement. And this is the two-state solution. Because if we will come into one state solution, we, the Israelis, are living in the First World War. Palestinians, the occupied territories, are living in a third world. And it is a huge economical difference. It is not only huge military difference, but also economical difference. And if you have a one state, the Jews will buy the lands from the Palestinians, the poor Palestinians. The process will not be ended. Only two-state solution will end the process. And this is why I stand on that solution. We have to stop it. All the disasters, all the suffering that as many stories he did that he witnessed, or I witnessed. It's much more than that. It's everywhere. He told you about the efforts to kick out the Palestinians from the South Hebron. I can tell you about the efforts to kick out the Palestinians from the Jordan Valley. I can tell you about the efforts to kick out the Palestinians from E1 area, which is between Jerusalem and Ma'ale Adumim, that they want to kick all the Bedouins from there and to build a settlement that will connect between the two and will cut the West Bank into two. And I can tell you about villages here and villages there that are under the threat of complete demolition. So it's all over the sea area. There are villages that are all the time under a constant effort to be thrown away from where they are. Because the undeclared policy of Israel today is to annex Zone C to Israel and leave A and B as Palestinian Bantustans. And the effort is to push as much as possible Palestinian out of Zone C, so there will not be the demographic problem with additional of Palestinians into Israel. This is the policy, and we hear the very painful practice of it. Yeah, Bob finished with the story of the Bedouins, where I am very active. This is the focus of my activity. And I want to tell you that in the year 2011, the Israeli government demolished over 1,000 houses of Bedouins in the Negev. They dared to do it in the occupied territories only during the Second Intifada. In 1 year, 1,000 of houses. Now, if you are reading and hearing and seeing the Israeli media, it did not happen. Simply did not happen. There was no one news, not in our newspapers, not in our radio, not in our TV. It did not happen. For the Israeli Jews, they don't know that it happened except of some crazy radicals like me. And it's happening like this year after year. Almost no news of what's happening with Bedouins in the Negev. We had a neighborhood, there is a village called Atir. It's an Abu Kian tribe, Bedouin tribe, which was forced out from their lands in 1949 in one place, and then in 1955-56 they were removed into the area which is very close to the West Bank. I'm a primitive man, I'm not so technological like him. One neighborhood of Atir, after 4 times of demolitions, including uprooting of all of their olive trees and other fruit trees, they left to Hura. It's a Bedouin town not far from. Now, the Israeli authority is saying that they offer these Bedouins to go to Hura and they agreed, which is true. I will take a gun, I will point it to your head, and I will tell you to do something and you will agree. Because otherwise, you will agree. They agree. Now, the media did not tell us that they agreed after their village was, the neighborhood, was demolished 4 times. So we know that they agreed. Fine, we are okay. We offer them, they agree. What do you want? What's the problem? There is no problem. The story of El Arakib, which we are involved in it since, I don't remember when, because before they started to demolish the village, they destroyed their crops, wheat and barley that used to grow. Every winter, when it's grow, how much it grows, the Israeli forces, police, with some, whatever they are coming and destroy something. I believe it's around 8,000 of dunams, which is 2,000 of acres of wheat and barley in the Bedouin sector. Also this year. So, but before Al-Arakib was have the experience of more than 60 times of demolitions, on the other side of the road, there was a Bedouin village that used to be called Wa'il Abu Jawa. Wa'il Abu Jawa was demolished more than 50 times, and at the end, there were quite a few arrests, and now the village does not exist. They are back to Lakia, another Bedouin town in the area. And instead of Wa'il Abu Jawa, today there is a forest. CPT delegation were visiting also Wa'il Abu Jawa. It was on my schedule of doing it. It is important to tell it because the same policy that we are facing in the West Bank, we are facing in the Negev. In the Galilee and the center of Israel, it is over. They took all what they could. There is not much left that they can take, and it is over. I just will give you a few figures. 1948, the eve of the war, the Jews had only 8% of the lands of what it is Israel today. Today, it is almost 97% of the land. Now, I don't have to tell you that nobody gave up their lands voluntarily. A lot of force was used. There were a lot of laws that made, legalize it. But there is a problem. When you speak with the Israelis, you always hear, what do you want? It is illegal. They build illegal. It is illegal to confiscate land. Your country has the laws that For security needs, you can confiscate land. For public needs, you can confiscate land. This is not different than your country. And we use the same kind of laws. The apartheid laws were laws. Nuremberg laws of the Nazi regime were the laws of the state. The racial laws of the southern countries, states of the United States, were laws. And some guys here in this country were openly broke these laws and spent a lot of time in your jails. The same in South Africa, and I will say it's the same in Israel. The problem with these laws is that they were not moral. They were not moral. They were the laws of the states, but they were not moral. And people formed them. And if we have a law that made possible for the Israelis I don't know how to use this. Give me a stick. I will not hit no one. Don't be afraid. I'm Israeli, but I will not hit anyone. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Now I'm fine. Okay, guys. Can you bring the map before? This is a map that shows the division of the Bedouin tribes in the Negev before 1948. You can see Azazne, Saadiin, Tiha, Jahalin, Tarabin, Jabarat. Now, it's wrong when I say a tribe. It's like a nation. It is like a super tribe because in each of these tribes there were 10, 15 smaller tribes. So I don't know what term exactly I should use. Can you pass to the next? Thank you. Now, if you hear the Israeli officials and you don't know the facts, what the government of Israel say about the Bedouins is completely right. In the Negev today, there are more than 50,000 houses that were built illegally. Most of the Bedouins are invaded, not most, but many, invaded state land. Bedouins are breaking the law. We have to enforce the law. Guys, Bedouins were forced out from the country until 1959. 10 years after the war was ended, still Bedouins were kicked out of the country. All the Palestinians who remained in Israel after the war of 48, they lived under military regime control, governing. Well, I don't use the right term in English. And so the Bedouins also. And then they started to do something very interesting. A military governor used to come to a tribe, to the sheikh of the tribe, and tell him that the army is going to make maneuvers in their area. So for their safety, they will have to move somewhere else. And after around 6 months, they will be able, when the army will finish the maneuvers, they will be able to come back. So they were removed. Those 6 months still did not pass. We are still within those 6 months since the beginning of the 50s. But they did a law in 1953 that all those empty land became a state land. Well, nobody was there. In other words, we have a case of a law. No, I'll say it in a different way. Imagine that in your Congress, somebody will suggest a law that it is allowed to rob property of people. Do you believe that there will be one congressman or woman that will approve this law? Of course not. If we will have in our Knesset, it's our parliament, such suggestion of the law, that it is allowed to rob property of people, there will not be even one parliament member, including the very extreme right wing, who will approve this law. And here, they did a law that actually was the law that allowed the state to rob lands from people. That their only crime was that they were Bedouins or Palestinians in the Jewish state. This is their only crime. This is why they lost their lands. And this is what I'm speaking about, the clash between law and morality. The clash between law and morality. We have a whole, mostly laws of lands, and laws of planning and building that create a situation of a clash between law and morality. I just told you one example. The other example is that Israel, during the 50s, all the Bedouins that remained in Israel were concentrated into this area. They call it the Sayag zone. Actually, the most of the Bedouins who are living in the Sayag zone were there from before 40. And those who were forced in are the remainings from those who were kicked out from the country. By the way, in 1960, when there was a census done in Israel, only 11,000 of Bedouins remained in the name. Today, around 200,000. It's a dramatic growth of population. It's a dramatic growth of population. And you know that there is a correlation, very high correlation between poverty and the rate of birth. And actually, the most poor society in Israel are the Bedouins. And but if I will continue with the issue of the law, okay, people were concentrating to this area, including those that anyway were here, during the 50s. In 1965, they made the law of planning and building, and with that, the help of that law, they declare all of this area as agricultural area. In other words, you cannot build there legally. Not only this, but Israel did not recognize the villages that have been here, the Bedouin villages, before Israel became a state. What is more strange, if you know the policy, it is not strange at all, but villages that were created by Israel when they took people from here and forced them into here, instead of give a legal status to the new village, they just left them there. And today they say, you are invader. You invade the land that we force you there, but you are invader. And you don't have any legitimacy for your village. So there is a village, Al-Khiran. I told you from Abu Kiran tribe, this Al-Khiran and Atir, two villages that are somewhere here, this area. Both of them are about to be evacuated, and the people are demanded to go to Khura. And instead of Al-Khiran, there will be a Jewish village, town, whatever, Khira, under the name Khira. And instead of Atir, there will be a forest. And both of these villages were, the people were took away from their land first, and then to another place, and then to there. The state of Israel told them, you sit here. And the state of Israel telling them today, you are invader, you built your homes illegally, you have to go to Khura. In Khura, you will have homes that will be built legally. And this is expression of a policy that started in the 60s, not only to concentrate the Bedouins into the Sayak zone, now they want to concentrate all the Bedouins into towns. This is the only way Bedouins in the Negev can live legally, according to the Israeli government. And now they are planning a new law that will help them to fasten this policy. Since the late 60s, when they started to build the towns, they built 7 towns where more or less 50% of the Bedouins are living. And now they want all the rest of the Bedouins, which are in unrecognized villages, to go to those towns, and they will add some more towns. Some villages will be receive the recognition, and I believe it is a base to concentrate into the more Bedouins, so it will become towns. The towns are a story of failure. They have the highest level of unemployment in Israel, not to speak about poverty. And something that Bedouins don't like me to talk about, but I think that you must know, probably the highest level of crime. Even if it is a failure story, still this is the only solution that the Israeli government is giving to the Bedouins. So it is not because they want to modernize them, it is not because they want to improve their life, it is because they want to squeeze them into a minimum territory. But this is not declared, this is denied. It's only stupid people like me are saying it because we see the policy on the ground. In other words, the whole historical process of pushing people out of the country And when you cannot push them anymore, we squeeze them into a minimal territory as possible. It is happening in Negev. It happened already north around the Negev, and it is happening in the West Bank. You have to know that today, in the West Bank, I believe more than 54% of the lands are already in the Jewish hands. There are probably 350,000 settlers without East Jerusalem. East Jerusalem, it's the same story, just that always the figures are given separately. And I have to, for me it's the same. I have to give it differently. By the way, we don't speak about it much, but you have to remember the Golan Heights. Golan Heights in '67, a great majority of the Syrians that were living in the Golan Heights became refugees. I believe more than 100,000 of people were kicked out from the Golan Heights in 1967. I believe that around 80% of the lands of the Golan Heights are in Jewish hands. There are 5, 6 Syrian villages that remain in the Golan Heights. There are around 20,000 of Israeli settlers, around 30,000 of Syrians. That's in the Golan Heights, and despite the catastrophe that is happening in Syria, we should not forget. It is occupation. It is under the same policy. Now, Israel never declared it. Israel never declared officially that we want to annex as much as possible of the occupied territories. They never declared it. But they did two things. They started to build settlements, and they took off the borders between Israel and the occupied territories. And this was only a few months after the war, when it was a Labour Party government. It was not the right-wing government. It was the Labour Party government. They took off the borders. This border disappeared from our map. This border disappeared from our map. The border there with Syria disappeared from our map. This border came back after the peace agreement between Israel and Egypt. But all the rest of it, and this is appeared again because we made one-sided leave from Gaza, which is leave us with very strange situation. Do I have more time?
What's your schedule?
You have a couple more minutes.
Sorry?
2 more minutes.
No more minutes, I finished.
You want to-
No. One subject.
One.
BDS. In the 80s, I initiated a group that we called the Palestinians in Israel for Nonviolence. Some of you have heard the name of Mubarak Awad, who is a Palestinian that actually was kicked out from the country in '69, became American citizen, and in the early 80s came out, he wrote a very important article calling for Palestinian nonviolent struggle against the occupation. So we together, some Palestinians from the occupied territories or from inside Israel, and some crazy Jews like me and friends, we formed a group where we tried to suggest the concept of nonviolence into our country. when the Second Intifada broke out, one of the Palestinian leaders who was opposing the use of violence in the Intifada. He is not pacifist. He is a very pragmatic leader. He said that we Palestinians must be crazy to fight violently against the Israelis because there is no balance of power. The difference of power are so big that all we can do is to give them legitimation to destroy us more than they do. The name of this leader is Abu Mazen. Abu Mazen, yes, Abu Mazen. And after Yasser Arafat died, he was elected to be the president of the Palestinian Authority. He is the most dovish leader, I believe, the Palestinians have. To my knowledge, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. He said, we as a Palestinians have no chance in the military battlefield against the Israelis. Not because it is wrong to use it. He is not pacifist like me. He is a pragmatic man. He said, we just have no chance. The strongest army and the most, with the most of the modern weapons against what? Against what? We must be crazy to fight them violently. We should make a popular struggle. And he reduced dramatically the violent struggle of the Palestinians against the Israelis. One of the results of this is the BDS movement. If you don't use a violent struggle, you must use something else. Now, along the times when the terror attack on Israel were very strong, let's say, Israel made excellent propaganda out of it. In the Western mind, people in Europe, people of the United States or Canada, etc., we were the victims of terror, and the Palestinians were the terrorists. Now, those who knows the reality on the ground knows that Palestinians lost their country, they lost their homes, they lost their land, they are under extreme occupation, they are losing the rest of what they have, and still they are the terrorists and we are the defendants. Now, for the Israeli army, as painful it is, you know, when a bus is explode, guys, nobody would like to be there. No Jew and not Palestinian. Nobody. It's very painful. But for the Israeli propaganda, it is fantastic. Now, so in those times, BDS campaign could not take. Nobody would boycott Israel when Israel is under a terror attack. BDS can take power only when there is not a terror attack on Israel. In other words, BDS is not only against Israel, it's not only pressure Israel, it is pressure also the Palestinians. Guys, on the moment that you will come to all out violent struggle, you lost the BDS. People will leave it. Will not continue it. This is a pressure on the Palestinians, not only about on the Israelis. The BDS also have another interesting element. On the moment that Israel will decide, the BDS will be ended. It is in every given moment. given to the Israelis to decide whether BDS will be working against Israel or will be stopped. On the moment that Israel will say, guys, we finish with the occupation. We accept Palestinian state aside of us, finish with the BDS. There is no reason. There is no reason. In other words, Israel in every moment that you want can finish with it. Now I will tell you something else. BDS put a barrier of interest between the Israeli citizens and the Israeli government. Because if Palestinians are going for a nonviolent popular struggle, we are secured. I don't remember that there is one Israeli that have been killed in Bil'in. How many years is the struggle? Somebody remember?
9.
I know that a few Palestinians have been killed, and I know that the most severe Israeli wounded in Bil'in was not a soldier, was an Israeli citizen who came to support the Palestinians and was wounded by the Israeli army. In other words, we Israeli citizens have interest in Palestinian non-violence, because then our security is secure. Very simple. For our government, it's very frightening. It's very frightening because it is balanced between the unbalanced powers. Because in the field of non-violence, Israel is not stronger than the Palestinians. And they are afraid from it. As long as there are terror attacks, there are always, the Israeli propaganda made a fortune for it. And our army can deal with it. Believe me, they can deal with it. But when it's come to non-violence, it is another story. I remember a few years ago, I don't remember the exact year, there were talkings about that Hamas going to send hundreds of thousands of refugees unarmed back home. I remember the fear in Israel. How will we face it? How will we face it without to destroy our international relations? How will we face it? Will we shoot them? We must be crazy. But Hamas did not do it. Because when you take a non-violent struggle, non-violent struggle means that you are not going to end, that you are not going to kill the other side. You are not threatening its existence. You demand your justice. And Hamas still did not make this shift. And even it was much more effective from all the rockets they have, they did not do it. Because this is a very important shift in the struggle. Now, we have a struggle, and we have to choose if it is a violent struggle, non-violent struggle. As long as Israel is not stopped with their undeclared policy to force Palestinians away and taking more and more and more of their lands, we are in struggle. And it is in our interest, Israelis, I speak as an Israeli, that it will be non-violent, because then we are secure. And therefore, BDS today is the most important campaign that is going on, because it is together the best pressure that can be done in Israel, and I hear the fear from it in Israel. The South African regime was ended by this kind of a campaign. And by the way, BDS in South Africa, in Israel maybe it is different. South Africa, the economical pressure was not so who knows what. Their problem was the legitimacy. And because South Africa have enough sources that they could stand the economical pressure. But the legitimacy of right country or society that they're backing Europe or America say we will not support you anymore. This was the very powerful pressure. And this is the very powerful pressure on Israel, not the economy, but the legitimacy. The legitimacy, more important than the economy. And therefore, I as Israeli, I am fully support the BDS. I think it is in our interest. And I think it is in the interest of both sides. They cannot break it with the tear gas. Bob shows few cases where there were wonderful nonviolent action that after a few days the Israelis found a way. They broke them by tear gas. BDS, they cannot broke by tear gas. Their jets are not, cannot break it. And this is why they're afraid from it so much. This is why they get crazy here about BDS, their supporters. Because no jet will break it. No tear gas, nothing of all a huge army with a huge power can stop it. They don't have this what to stop it. And this is why it is so powerful. And it is, and we don't have to stop it because it is in the interest of the both sides. Thank you.
Thank you to the speakers. We're going to open up to questions now. So if anybody has one to start.
Also disagreements.
Sorry, yeah. Any disagreements, any questions, anything you want to know more about, feel free to ask them now. If there's anything, actually, I'd like to start maybe with the first question. To both the speakers, actually. You mentioned South Africa in comparison to it. I just want to know, can you talk more about the similarities and differences with the South African apartheid and the struggle to end apartheid throughout the 80s and earlier?
Yeah, I could speak a little bit to that. I was at a conference just in December in Bethlehem, and there, at the conference there was a South African, black South African, and I asked him, how does the situation here compare to apartheid that you experienced in South Africa? And his response was, what's happening here is apartheid on steroids compared to what we had. It's worse.
Would you like to add, or?
Sorry.
So the question was just, what are the similarities and differences with South African apartheid in the current situation in Israel?
The very first important difference that we always have to remember, the white people needed the black people to work for them. They did not want to kick them out from the country. The Israelis want to kick you out from the country. This is the most important difference. And the other details, give it to them. Give me a break. It's not, this is not what's important. The real important thing, Israelis don't want the Palestinians there, as the Palestinians don't want us there, by the way. And this is the very different importance. Now, why to use the term apartheid? Because it is in the air. because it is in the air and because people don't really understand what's going on there. I don't speak about Palestinians or Israelis. I don't know how much Israelis understand it, I don't know. So I don't speak about this, I speak about people from outside. They don't really understand what's going on there, most of the people. And therefore, the use of the term apartheid is my English, I'm sorry. It's to bring people into it, to support it. And this is why it is important to use the term, even if it is not so.
Question in the back.
First of all, I just want to make a short comment. I was having a conversation with a woman about 3 weeks ago. She went on a trip with her church at Scottsdale to Israel. And I know it was probably an Israeli round trip. But she was so proud of the fact that they'd gone on a mission trip and they were working with, that Israel had a program for the Bedouin people to teach them job skills. So I just thought that was kind of ironic.
The irony.
And then, this is probably a long answer, and maybe I shouldn't be asking this, but I just don't see that there's any possibility of a two-state solution at this point. I mean, what land is left for Palestinians? What about the settlements? What about all these people there? What about Jerusalem? I mean, there's just, how could there ever be two states?
One of the big
Let me say
success.
something before Amos does.
Yeah.
Yesterday, we were interviewed by Pat McGran, and Pat, in his interview with Cafe on Sunday, appointed Amos Prime Minister of Israel and said, "What would you do to solve this problem? Amos, what would you do to get this two-state solution to happen?"
And I know we can't stay here all night, but maybe I should have asked that question, but.
No, actually during the settlement, there was an alternative peace negotiations between the Palestinians and Israelis. The head of the Israelis was Yossi Beilin, who was a minister of law in the government of Barak also. And the head of the Palestinian delegation was Yasser Abed-Rabo. Beilin was there, of course, in opposition in Israel. Yasser Abed-Rabo, about everything that before he agreed or did not agree, was phoning to Arafat. They did reach an alternative peace agreement, a Geneva Accords. We call it a Geneva Accords, I said. So, on the shelf, we have a peace agreement. They have just to pick it. The problem is that they don't want to do it. At least the Israelis don't. And the principles of this agreement was that the basis for agreement is the Green Line. That they would agree of exchange of territories, 1-to-1, on something like 4%, I think, according to the Clinton suggestion, in order to ease it for Israel with the settlements. You have to know that we might face a civil war when we will make peace with the Palestinians. We have these ultra-extremist Zionists that are living in part of the settlements, not only in the settlements, most of them religious nationalists. And I believe that the assassination of our Prime Minister Rabin was the first shot in our civil war. Palestinians might have the same danger. If we will not accept the right of return, I don't know what will happen in the refugee camps. In other words, we must make very clear difference between peace and reconciliation. In our conflict, you cannot reach reconciliation. There is no way in the world that Palestinians will accept the justification of why they had to pay for the crimes of the Christian Europe against the Jews and not the Europeans. Why Palestinians pay the price? Why not the Germans? Why not the Polish? Why not the Russians? Why not any other European country where the anti-Semitism was so active before the Holocaust? Why Palestinians? No way that Palestinians can accept this justification. Even Israel is the fulfillment of a right of return after almost 2,000 years. The Israelis are not ready to accept the right of return of Palestinians after 66 years. So you cannot make reconciliation. You can make peace, which is extremely painful compromises. Extremely painful compromises. I like to tell you something that I heard from Sufyan Abu Zaidi. It's a Fatah leader from Gaza who used to be for some time the Minister of Prisoners, I think, in the Palestinian Authority. We invited him to an evening that we did on Gaza in Tel Aviv some years ago. And thank you. Somebody asked him, what's the difference between Fatah and Hamas? And listen now very careful to his answer. It is very important what he said. He said, for us in the Fatah, it took 40 years to understand that we cannot kick you out from the country. And we have to make for the life. We have to compromise. What can